Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unraveling what is essentially a high-stakes medical detective story. It's a fascinating look at human biology, artificial intelligence, and the absolutely vital importance of knowing what you don't know. We're going to look at how cutting-edge AI is completely revolutionizing the way we map brain tumors. But here's the catch. To actually pull this off, the AI had to learn how to stop staring at the tiny, hyper-specific details, take a massive step back, and finally see the bigger picture.
Okay, let's dive into this. Every single year, over 300,000 people receive a truly terrifying diagnosis, a tumor in the brain or the central nervous system. I mean, the human cost there is just staggering, and the stakes are quite literally life or death. When a patient is facing a brain tumor, one of the absolute most critical steps before any surgery, before any treatment even begins, is perfectly mapping out exactly where the healthy brain ends and the tumor begins.
Now, this colorful map we're looking at, it isn't just a scan, it's a battle plan. This is a process we call image segmentation. The whole goal for our medical detective, the AI, is to isolate specific regions within the brain scan. So, for example, the green area represents the whole tumor, the red maps out the enhancing tumor, and that blue part pinpoints the actual tumor core. Identifying these exact boundaries is absolutely vital for a surgeon going in.
Traditionally, drawing these boundaries is just a grueling manual process. A highly trained radiologist can easily spend up to 4 hours meticulously analyzing a single patient's scans. 4 hours! Deep learning AI, on the other hand, can do this incredibly fast and often matches human accuracy. But there's a pretty big catch. Early deep learning approaches were notoriously brittle. When they were faced with a uniquely shaped tumor that didn't perfectly match what they'd seen in their training, they would fail, and sometimes they'd fail spectacularly.
To really understand why the AI struggles so much, you have to understand the terrain it's trying to navigate. A brain tumor isn't just some simple, solid mass. It's made up of really complex subcompartments. You've got the necrotic area, which is the consistent core. Then you have the enhancing tumor. This is the aggressive area where the tumor is actively spreading and forming new blood vessels. And finally, the peritumoral edematous, which is basically the swelling surrounding the tumor. It's a chaotic, highly irregular landscape.
Which brings us to a really fascinating question, and honestly the fatal flaw of those early AI models. Can an algorithm actually know when it's making a mistake? Because look, a super fast AI is only useful if it's actually safe. If an AI misidentifies a tumor boundary but is 100% confident in its wrong answer, well, that is incredibly dangerous. So, researchers had to figure out a way to teach our AI detective to, essentially, doubt itself.
We call this concept uncertainty estimation. Instead of the AI just confidently declaring, this 3D pixel or voxel is definitely a tumor, it instead says something like, I am 95% sure this voxel is a tumor. Giving the AI the ability to assign a confidence level to its own predictions changes the game entirely. Because if the uncertainty is high, the model is essentially raising its hand and saying, hey, I might be wrong here. And that allows doctors to immediately flag that specific patient scan for a manual expert review. So researchers basically threw the kitchen sink at this problem. They tested 5 different methods on the BRATS dataset just to get the AI to accurately quantify its own errors on a voxel-by-voxel basis. To see what would actually stick, they rapidly tried everything. They ran a standard baseline. They tried Monte Carlo dropout, which is where you randomly turn off parts of the network at test time to see if the answer changes. They injected aleatoric noise, ran ensembles of multiple models at once, and even attached auxiliary networks. They tried the whole shebang. But here comes the massive plot twist. When researchers looked at the overall dataset, the AI models looked perfectly calibrated. It really seemed like they knew exactly how confident they should be. But when they zoomed in on the individual patient scans, it totally fell apart. That good dataset calibration they were seeing was actually a complete statistical illusion. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the data for the whole tumor exposes this illusion perfectly. Look at this. 39% of the time, the AI was underconfident, and 25% of the time, it was wildly overconfident. Only 36% of the samples were actually well calibrated. The only reason it looks so good on the surface was simply because those massive errors in underconfidence and overconfidence were just canceling each other out in the grand total. Crazy, right? This led to a stunning realization, which was beautifully summarized in the research. They wrote, voxel-based uncertainties and segmentation errors show only a small overlap. What does that mean in plain English? It means the AI was confidently wrong. The exact places where the AI made a mistake were rarely the places where the AI actually felt uncertain. Traditional models fundamentally just could not determine the quality of their own predictions. So why was it failing so badly?
Well, think of the old parable of the blind men and the elephant. Traditional convolutional neural networks, or CNNs, have limited kernel sizes. This basically means they are looking at these complex medical images through a tiny keyhole. They process local patches brilliantly, sure, but they completely miss the overarching context of the entire brain. If you only look at the trunk, you have no idea you're looking at an elephant.
To solve this, our detective needed a totally new gadget: vision transformers, or VITs. Originally designed for processing language, transformers have this incredible superpower called self-attention. This allows the architecture to essentially step back, look at the entire image all at once, and model the relationships between distant parts of the brain. It captures the global context that traditional CNNs completely miss.
Enter the ultimate hero of our explainer, the SWIN UNETR architecture. This model takes a brilliant leap. It actually reformulates 3D brain segmentation into a sequence-to-sequence problem. It takes 4 different types of MRI modalities. Think of them as different visual filters like T1, T1C, T2, and FLAIR, and turns them into a 1D sequence, feeding them into a hierarchical transformer that reads the brain scan almost like a highly complex sentence.
And this brilliantly illustrates the mechanics of it. The SWIN UNet blueprint forms this distinct U-shape. On the left side, you have the SWIN transformer acting as the encoder, breaking down the image at 5 different resolutions. Then, through those dashed lines you see, the skip connections, it feeds that rich global information directly into a traditional CNN-based decoder over on the right side to reconstruct the final, pixel-precise tumor map.
But the real genius here is the SWIN mechanism itself, the shifted window. Instead of keeping data locked inside rigid 3D blocks, the model dynamically shifts the window boundaries between its layers, creating these overlapping zones. This allows the AI to securely connect long-range dependencies across the entire brain, all without overwhelming the computer's memory. It's incredibly efficient.
Let's move to and see how this builds a global understanding in a mechanical step-by-step process. First, the AI extracts tiny 3D tokens from the MRI data. Second, it applies that shifted window mechanism we just talked about to group them. Third, it computes self-attention, which is essentially it asking, hey, how does this piece of the tumor relate to a piece of tissue all the way on the other side of the brain? And finally, it decodes that global understanding into an output map.
So, the crucial point is, did stepping back to see the bigger picture actually work? Oh, absolutely. In the grueling Brot's 2021 validation challenge, where it had to analyze thousands of highly complex, multimodal scans, the SWIN UNETR model defeated the previous heavyweight champions. It outperformed NIUNet, SegResNet, and other reading networks across all 5 cross-validation folds. It was a complete game changer.
And this massive grid of successful, high-accuracy segmentations really is our hero shot. It proves it. The SWIN UNETR model is safely and effectively mapping the most complex, aggressively shaped tumors out there. By mastering the global context of the brain, this technology isn't just saving radiologists hundreds of hours of grueling manual labor, it is actively paving the way for more precise surgeries, better treatment plans, and ultimately, it's going to save human lives.
We've seen how teaching an AI to overcome its own blind spots and look at the whole picture has completely transformed how we map our most vital organ. But, it leaves us with a pretty thrilling frontier to think about. If AI can decipher the brain's deepest secrets by simply stepping back to see the big picture, what other impossible medical mysteries is it finally ready to solve? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.